there, it's Bonnie Way from thekoalamom.com, and I'm so excited that you're here today. In this video, I'll be chatting with a friend of mine, Clara from Simply Clarafying, about homeschool socialization. This is a question that we've both gotten a lot as homeschool moms, and we thought we'd talk about it today for you. Clara is a homeschooling mom with 3 children, ages 11 to 16. She's been homeschooling for 10 years, so she has lots of great experience to share on this topic. And so here's Clara for you, talking about homeschool socialization.
Are homeschooled kids socialized? That's the burning question everybody has, don't they? And it's not quite a simple yes or no. I think that it all depends on the parents. Truly, I think homeschooling offers an opportunity for families to be involved in so many activities. Again, this all is dependent on where you live. Here in Vancouver, we have a very thriving homeschool community. We have different pockets of the greater Vancouver area where you can join groups, you can attend classes. There is just so much out there. It's almost overwhelming. Now, if you come from a small town, you have to be a little bit more mindful of how you're going to incorporate activities. So again, I think location definitely poses a factor, but overall, I would say definitely homeschoolers are socialized. And I would even dare to say that I think that they are more socialized. Some people aren't going to like to hear that, but it's true. And listen, this is why. When you're in school, you are among people that are your age. They all happen to be born the same year you are. That's the way our school system is set up. It was based on the Industrial Revolution, and it was for factory workers to have a place to house their children during the day while they attended, the workforce. And, that's why it's from 9 to 3, and they set it up in a way that was very systematic. And so they had grades, and it was based on the year you were born. Now, if we go further back, yes, they had one-room classrooms with a multitude of ages. And honestly, that's kind of how homeschooling is, because you look at your siblings and they're all different ages and you're learning together. And so kind of we've gone back to the way it used to be, but during that Industrial Revolution, it definitely set up a more structured environment. Hence the bells, asking to go to the washroom, all of that stuff, that came from that era. And so what my thought is, and again, this is just from what I've read, this is from people I talked to, from people that I've watched on, different lectures. I would say that in our day-to-day life, going to work or among the community, you are not with everybody that is your age. You need to interact with people that are younger than you. You need to interact with people that are older than you. Of course, people your age, different experiences, different educational background. It's a variety. So when you're in school for 12 plus years, you are segregated with your peers. And I say peers, being people that are exactly your age. And that is not real life. That is not the way the world works. Like I said, when you're in the workforce, you're gonna have a boss that might be actually younger than you. You might have an employee who is very, very young or extremely old. You have to be able to work with a multitude of personalities and different demographics. And so that's why I would argue that homeschoolers kind of have an advantage, because when you go to a class or you go to a homeschool group, they tend to have groups that are multi-aged. And I can give an example. My children's musical theater group is from grades 2 to grade 7. They are working for, from September to March on a production. And it's a huge age range. You're going from, age 7 all the way to age 12. And that is a big difference in age. And you have to work together. You're working on scenes together and choreography together. And that's the same for other classes as well. If you take, a French class in a home learning group, you're gonna have kids that are of different ages. So when I say that I think that they're more socialized, I think they have more opportunity to kind of forge relationships with people that are not necessarily their exact age. Now, to talk further about classes, homeschoolers have so much opportunity. My kids could be in so many programs with, other homeschooled kids. There is chess, there is horseback riding, there are French classes, there's gymnastics, there's music lessons, acting lessons, you name it, there is a class. And so you can actually be over socialized, believe it or not. It can bombard you and you can feel very overwhelmed and not sure what you should be doing. And so over the years, we've decided to kind of scale back a little bit, because I was finding that we don't actually have a lot of time at home to do work because we're always out and about. So I kind of dedicate certain days of the week to being out in classes. And then other times we're home getting our work done. Or you could be doing classes in the morning and your work in the afternoon, or vice versa. I actually like to do my work in the morning and then have the afternoon free to do classes. And so, yeah, there is just so much. I don't have one single doubt in my mind that my children are super social. They love to be around their friends and around other kids, and they love to be around adults as well, so it's a win-win for sure. Of course there's personality. You're gonna get kids that are in public school that are introverts and not social at all. You're gonna get homeschoolers like that too. So, it does depend on the personality, and there are some children that they don't need to have a lot of friends or to be very social. They enjoy being at home and reading and being quiet and doing, little activities at home, and that's totally fine. But you're gonna find that in school as well. So I wouldn't kind of, pinpoint and say, oh, okay, because, they're homeschooled or because they're in public school, they're not as social. I would say that it does depend on personality, and maybe if you do have an introvert that you're homeschooling, you would try to encourage a little bit more activity outside of the house, perhaps. Every family makes their own decisions. The other thing I want to mention is that kids that are in school, often when you're with your peers for a long amount of time, you pick up social habits from them. I would say learning social skills and social norms from another 6-year-old is not exactly the way to be social. Kids need adults. They need people to role model social behavior. And again, I would say that homeschoolers have an advantage in that. They are out and about in the community, in a lot of classes with instructors and mentors, or the librarian at your local library. They're with many, many adults, and that's where they get their social cues from. They're also with you all day. And I think that makes a big difference. When they're with their peers, they pick up things that their peers do. That is natural. And my kids do the same when they're at their musical theater group and they're with their, their friends for, 3 hours. Of course, they're going to adopt some, social cues from them. And that's totally fine. But it's a little bit different when it's 5 days a week for 6+ hours. So yeah, kids don't necessarily get socialized properly from being with their peers all day. They get it from the adults in their life. And homeschoolers tend to be around adults way more than school children, of course. School children are with some adults because they have teachers and administration, but the majority of their time is spent with their peers. And so I think that's something to think about. I think that we assume that being social is, with people our age and with peers. But when you're young, under the age of 12, well, maybe even under the age of 16, you are not necessarily learning positive social skills. You need to see it role modeled. You need to be around adults that are responsible and courteous. And to me, that is the way to pick up good social cues. So here's where it gets interesting. Now, I've talked about how I think that homeschoolers are more social than schooled kids because they are around adults. They have a lot of classes. They're not with their peers that are born the same age, from 9 to 3. However, so this is the part that I thought, you might be surprised. I do believe that when they enter into the high school ages, that time is when the parent really needs to take the reins and become a little bit more mindful of encouraging and forging positive friendships with peers. So what ends up happening that I find, again, these are just my opinions. This is not, something that some psychologist said. This is what I have observed for many, many years. As you get older, a lot of kids drop out of homeschooling. So a lot of parents will decide to homeschool maybe till grade 7. So here in Canada, we have elementary school. No, I shouldn't say Canada, sorry. There are some places that have middle school, but here in Vancouver, I should say, we go to grade 7. And that's called elementary school. And then we have high school, which is from 8 to 12. Now there is, I know, a little bit of difference in different cities. They have middle school, and I would imagine that's grade 6 to grade 8 or grade 9. Something like that. Anyway, so there is middle school here, but I'm going to say probably around grade 7 is when parents decide, okay, it's time to put them into school. Maybe it's the child asking to go to school. Maybe the parent is not feeling adequate to deal with, heavier subjects in high school. There's a number of reasons why people decide to put their child in school for high school. And so you'll see a decline in some classes and in participation of older kids. So it's a little bit harder to find, 16, 17-year-olds in the classes that I mentioned, in your horseback riding class, in your chess class, musical theater, etc. The other reason for that is because they are studying. They are taking online classes. Their workload is a lot more rigorous at these ages, and so they don't have as much time for classes and to have those interactions. And so what I suggest is to really make it a priority to get your teenager who is homeschooled into something that maybe other teenagers are doing. And if they do have one or two friends, you do have to be purposeful and get them together so that they can develop a really strong friendship. So it just takes a little bit more work, I would say, as they get older to kind of encourage and to keep that relationship afloat. Because like I said, there's just not as many teenagers out there maybe homeschooling as there are little kids. And so when you do find those couple of friends, you want them to be able to have the time to, have, opportunities to get together. So overall, I would say that you definitely want to just be a little bit more purposeful in encouraging those relationships with your teens, with their peers and their friends. And you just have to carve out more time. I think that's what it boils down to. And obviously now we have social media, and it is a lot easier to get in contact with your friends. So yeah, I think that it definitely can work for sure. But I have heard from some homeschoolers that it's a little bit harder as they get older to to keep up those friendships that they once had in the younger years. So I want to thank Bonnie so much for having me on her channel. You can find me at simplyclarafying.com, and that is my website where you'll find more information about courses and printables and ebooks and my YouTube channel. So come visit. I'd love to have you there. And thanks so much, Bonnie, for having me on your channel. Bye-bye.
Clara has given you a lot to think about on this topic. I have to say that in all my years as a homeschool student and a homeschool mom, I've never met a weird, unsocialized homeschooler. You can hop over to Clara's channel to see what I have to say about homeschool socialization. I've included all the links below for you to drop by our blogs and to follow us on social media. So have a great day.